Hello, people. So, in answer to a message from a subscriber, so thank you for subscribing, and don't forget, people, to like and subscribe. Otherwise, you'll miss all this glorious content that I'm giving away for free. And some of it may be of value to you, or it may annoy you or entertain you, whatever. But you won't know unless you subscribe. But the question was this. They've wanted to start putting out content for years in the area of their expertise. But their biggest problem is they're just not confident enough to put out the content. Now, some people would say, well, just start and you'll get better as you go along. And there is some truth in that. But I think there are some things that you can do immediately to assist you start on a good foot. Because, yes, it's okay to learn on the job. But I think if you've got some good advice on where to focus and how to grow, it kind of expedites things. So the first thing I'm going to say is that when you put yourself on camera and you are speaking to your audience, I think it's important to personalize it in the sense that just know who you're talking to. Like, think about talking to your brother or your sister or your mum or your dad or your wife or your kids, whatever it is, but have somebody in mind that you're speaking to. And it helps immensely change your relationship to things, especially to the tech, because fundamentally I'm an actor. And so when I'm performing, I'm not thinking about the camera. My aim is to be in the moment, to live it truthfully. And so I'm just engaged with whatever it is and whoever it is I'm with, who I'm listening to, who I'm speaking with. And it's a little bit different when you do content creation, because unless you're doing like an in-the-room conversation or a podcast, etc., it's just you talking to a camera. So I find that if you personalize it, put a face on it, give it a name. It could be your brother, sister, mother, whatever. It would just make it a much easier process. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and again, really, really important, just make sure you've got good lighting, good sound, good camera. So most phones these days are good enough to shoot on. Make sure, that it records sound well, or maybe by a mic. It doesn't have to be a really expensive mic, but it's just knowing that we can see you and we can hear you. And lighting is personal preference. I'm just shooting some colors at the moment, but you could do just a ring light straight in your face. The problem with that sometimes is that you get the circles in your eyes, and some people like that. I'm on the fence about it. It feels a little bit more fashion, but it can look quite nice. But it doesn't have to be, a crazy setup. You can get a couple of fairly inexpensive LED lights and either set them up on stands or set them up on desktop stands and position them to light your face. And I'm not going to go into the technicalities of that, because you can go online and learn, and find out the different options of how to set your lights from experts. I'm not a lighting expert. You can shoot with one light, you can shoot with 2 lights or 3 lights. I like to shoot with 3 lights at times. And but again, go on to YouTube, or even just put it into Google, etc., and how to to light yourself, and you'll have a bunch of options to play with. And with all these things, play with it. Before you just put yourself on camera and record and post, just set it up, have a play with it. Just explore your space, look at your backdrop, put yourself into position, find an area in a room that you're going to be shooting in, and then set everything up. And ideally, if you can leave it set up, it's a lot easier, because I find that if you always have to set up your recording, you'll tend to not do it as frequently. But if you can just literally switch things on and start recording, you're more likely to do it more, because if you're having to put the effort every time to set up everything and then you can sit down and record, it kind of takes away a little bit from the creativity, I find. So if you can have a setup that's kind of left or pretty quick, to put things up, you'll find that you'll record more. So another little top tip. So all in all, that's kind of my initial thoughts, is like, know who you're talking to, make sure you've got good lighting, make sure that you have good sound. And I don't like to script things as a whole. And some people will say, well, that means that you waffle on. But if you know your stuff, I honestly believe that you can just put down bullet points of what you want to cover and just be clear about how much time you want to allocate to each bullet point. And you can speak from experience and expertise. I think if you're trying to speak off the kind of, off a script, yes, you can use a teleprompter, and so you can look down the camera and you're just reading as you go along. But again, I think that does take away from just an organic, authentic performance. So I think it's really good if you can just allow yourself that freedom to speak on the subjects, on the bullet points that you've listed for that particular video from your experience and expertise. And I find that it's quite powerful. And also you'll surprise yourself on how free you'll become, rather than thinking I must, make sure I read every word and I get all the points across. You'll just have much more freedom to be more fluid and to play with it and to enjoy it. And also remind yourself that you know your stuff. And so it's just allowing yourself just to freely speak about it. We want to avoid that kind of, I always used to, whenever I was in meetings and people would pull out a PowerPoint and they would kind of talk through the PowerPoint, I just felt that, you know your stuff, and yet you're kind of being drawn to this PowerPoint, and it's kind of taking me out of the conversation because I'm in between you and this screen. And I much prefer it when people just sort of like chuck up a bullet point and they just talk freely. Also, it says a little bit more about the person in terms of their level of confidence, about their knowledge and their understanding of what they're talking about. And storytelling is, can be pulled in amongst that, and you can draw your audience in by just, having the freedom to tell stories whilst you're also delivering the message in terms of what it is that you're covering. So I hope that's of some value. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment below or direct message me and I will respond, because I'm hoping to make this more interactive. I'm hoping to share my areas of expertise and experience, and just to add value across the board, and help people out there to have an awfully big adventure, because it's very easy to get caught up with all the negativity in life, and to get caught up in between our ears, like stuck in our head. And I just think it's so important to find a way to free yourself. And I've spent a lot of time doing that for myself, and I've worked with people over the years in different capacities, and I've assisted them do the same thing, and it's just wonderful. And I'm hoping to do the same with you. So have a beautiful day, and I will see you on the next one.